we are now ready to have Dr. Lucia Monaco talking about the research impact and the International Rare Diseases Research Consortium. Dr. Monaco leads the Research Impact and Strategic Analysis team at Fondazione Telethon, an Italian charity aimed at transforming research on rare genetic diseases into accessible therapies. As I said, she also chairs the International Rare Diseases Research Consortium, and we have here her to talk about that consortium today. So, Dr. Monaco, I'm glad we were able to work out the tech problems, and welcome. Thank you very much for coming on today. You're coming to us from Milan, Italy, and so welcome. And I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'm going to share the screen. I wish to say hello to all the people attending this very important workshop. And
Dr. Monaco, if I could interrupt a second, I'm actually wrong. This is actually our studio is running the slideshow right now, so it's not coming from your computer. It's coming from our computers. So you just need to tell us next slide, and
okay.
Our guys will advance it.
Okay, that's fine. So. So it's a pleasure to come after the colleagues from IRDiRC. In fact, all the speakers whom you met before me, are part of IRDiRC, and I'm really humbled to be talking after them. So the next slide. Sorry, I'm not seeing it moving. I assume. I'm sorry about these problems. Let's see. Okay. So in the next slide, I don't need to go into the details of these numbers next, because you've heard them already. And the next one. The next one. So these are the numbers associated to rare diseases. You can notice some variation in the ranges that are given, but this is associated with the uncertainties and the lack of standardization that have been mentioned already. But altogether, they speak to a global problem that unites people with very rare or ultra rare diseases into a problem, especially for healthcare systems. Next. So due to the rarity of diseases, huge disparities are associated to these diseases, and we've heard about them already. So starting from the diverse legal recognition and definition of the diseases, or even the disease nomenclature can vary according to the organization who is adopting one or the other ontologies. It's all associated to different geographic and socioeconomic settings. Next. We know there is a scattered scientific knowledge, financial resources, and we heard also clinical expertise, uneven availability of diagnostic tests, of treatments, and even when these are available, the access to these can vary hugely. Next. What are the challenges for research? Also, I'm really repeating concepts we've heard already. First of all, having access to patients for them to share their clinical data or biological material for research, or collecting consent to sharing these items is quite challenging, due to diversity in geographies and setup and legislations. If we talk about basic and preclinical research, there is a huge diversity and difficulties in harmonizing and sharing data. The funding is scattered and dispersed, and having coordination and cooperation in research activities is also quite challenging. Moving on to translational research and drug development, patient recruitment in clinical trials is difficult. The design of clinical studies is particular due to the rarity of the patients, the paucity of patients. The regulatory requirements cannot be the traditional one and need a specific and tailored approach. And also the problem of profitability and sustainability of drug development is associated especially to the most rare diseases. Next. And in order to reach access to treatments, the journey needs to complete all the steps up to marketing authorization. The pricing is an issue that has been mentioned already, and a health system approval. So all of these compounds a very complex scenario. Next. Next slide, please. And so if we try to look at the stakeholders in this arena, the primary stakeholders, of course, are people living with the rare disease who need solutions in terms of diagnosis and treatments. And the stakeholders engaged in this effort next are researchers, companies, regulators, health systems, all driven by different factors. And so this complexity has to be taken into account in order to promote collaboration and to move forward. And this is why next, IRDiRC was launched 10 years ago by initiative of the European Commission and the National Institutes of Health in the United States. IRDiRC was launched in order to maximize the output of rare disease research through a better coordination in a global approach. IRDiRC teams up research funders and companies that are investing in rare disease research. And the requirement is that each member organization commits to investing at least $10 million US over 5 years. But this doesn't mean pooling this money in a common pool. Each member organization keeps funding and supporting research according to its own agenda, but all funded projects and programs adhere to a common framework. A very important and third constituency in IRDiRC are the patient advocacy groups that are really fundamental in this scenario. IRDiRC relies on the expertise of scientific experts that form 3 scientific committees for diagnostic therapies and interdisciplinary topics that are the transversal ones that are touching upon issues like data sharing, harmonization, but also ethical, legal, and social issues. Next. So altogether, the added value of such a unique initiative is to be able to rely on the collective intelligence, on global expertise, on complementary competencies, so that now IRDiRC has become a driver of international initiatives. Next. We count today on 62 member organizations, nearly 3 times as much compared to the first year, 2011, when we had a 21 member organization from 22 countries from all continents. You see the geographical coverage is uneven and incomplete. And we heard about this by the previous speakers. But we hope that this can improve in time. Next. So the first activity that IRDiRC engaged in at the very beginning was to set common policies and guidelines that would be agreed upon by all members and would guide their decisions. So the policies are addressed to research funders, and they touch on the need to promote the discovery of genes underlying rare diseases, to encourage the development of therapies, and encourage and facilitate data release, to provide and promote registries and biobanks, to promote coordination, and very importantly, to involve patients in all relevant aspects of rare disease research. Next. Key policies for researchers are also addressed, and they regard really the best practices for research for rare diseases, and they are addressed to researchers, and they rely on the commitment of research funders to implement such policies in their own program and with their own researchers and investigators. Next. So what are IRDiRC goals? At the very beginning, IRDiRC set two goals, one for diagnosis, meaning that the target was to reach diagnostic tools for most rare diseases, and for therapies, aiming at promoting and reaching 200 new drugs for rare diseases by year 2020, so in the first decade. It happened that by the end of 2016, this second goal was surpassed. And that set a new process going at IRDiRC in order to address the most urgent needs of the community and to identify more challenging goals. And this exercise that really engaged the whole IRDiRC family, but also the wider community, produced an ambitious and aspirational vision to enable all people living with a rare disease to receive an accurate diagnosis, care, and available therapy within 1 year of coming to medical attention. And here, the urgency and the need of having access to available solutions are recognized and are driving the new goals that are set again for diagnosis, for therapies, where in particular the goal for therapies has been raised to 1,000 new therapies for the decade up to 2027. And the third new goal has been added regarding the need of assessing the impact of diagnosis and therapies on the lives of people with rare diseases, where IRDiRC agreed to work at establishing methodologies to allow such assessment. Next. So how are we doing with our first two goals? We keep monitoring the indicators for both the diagnosis and the therapies. And you can see here, unfortunately, I see the x-axis, the years have disappeared, but it goes from 2010 on. You see the trend is a positive one with growing numbers of genes linked to rare diseases. These are data that are obtained in collaboration with Orphanet, the rare disease database that Daria mentioned earlier. But you can also appreciate that the trend is towards a sort of a plateau, speaking to the need of intensifying the efforts and also engaging into new approaches to reach more and more diagnoses for rare diseases. Next. The same for new orphan drugs. We keep track of them. Of these, you can appreciate that the speed of new orphan drugs has improved since 2016, but still through a very rough estimation based on pure linear regression, you can appreciate that the 1,000 goal would not be reached by 2027. And also this is not considering other compounding factors, for instance, the effect of the pandemic on the pace of developing new therapies for rare diseases. So how is IRDiRC working in order to facilitate and promote progression towards these goals that, let me tell you, are not counting the direct activities of IRDiRC members only, but are just monitoring the scenario and providing benchmarks to stimulate our activities. Next. So the main tool that IRDiRC has put in place to address these issues are task forces. These are specific activities that are run by teams of experts that are recruited from the IRDiRC committees, but also from the wider rare disease community. The topics that are addressed by task forces come from a joint work of all 6 IRDiRC committees that regularly propose priority actions that are then prioritized through the decision-making process of the Consortium Assembly, so that we reach an annual roadmap in order to start the new activities and to conclude, of course, those that are ongoing. Let me tell you that all of these activities rely on the voluntary commitment and contribution of the members of the committees, of the members of the task forces and working groups, where working groups are preliminary and exploratory activities. And so it is really relying on the generous support and selfless support of all its members. But it is all managed and coordinated by the Scientific Secretariat. That is a team of professionals that is coordinated within the EJP, the European Joint Programme on Rare Diseases, and coordinated by Daria Julkowska. And let me also tell that recruitment into the scientific committees and into task forces is regularly open to outside proposals that are announced on our website. So next, I would like to place these activities by IRDiRC on this map that has 2 axes. You can see the journey from basic research up to access to the solutions, be they therapies or diagnosis, and the axis that goes along the 3 IRDiRC goals. And let me touch on those activities that have been completed by now. Next. And let me map them in this dotted area that represents the core specific competence of IRDiRC. That is the research competence that spans from basic research to the development steps through the diagnostic and therapies goals. So the first activities of IRDiRC have addressed the need of diagnosis of diseases beyond the genetic analysis and the genetic and genomic tools. And regarding goal 2 for therapies, it has addressed the very important area of drug repurposing for rare diseases. And also in a very important and fruitful activity, it has addressed the whole journey of orphan drug development by producing a guidebook that is explaining and representing all the steps that are needed to get to the authorization. and which is a resource that is now available. Also, very importantly, especially in the first years of IRDiRC, transversal topics that are important for clinical research have been addressed, in particular regarding patient data, not only in terms of the management of these data, the development of informatic tools that would allow their exchange and their access, the standardization and harmonization of data that is so important when we deal with several thousand of rare diseases, but also those ethical issues regarding the privacy of the data of a patient and their consent to the usage and access of these. Another important aspect that has been addressed regarded the design and the setup of clinical trials that dealing with very limited populations had to take care of non-canonical models and approaches, and also an important aspect regarded the definition of outcome measures that would be meaningful to patients and not only to clinicians and to scientists. So you see all the initial activities fall within this area that is the core competence of IRDiRC. If we move next to activities, let me tell you that all of these activities that I've mentioned have been addressed through one or more task forces that have produced solutions and results that are now available to the community, like, for instance, informatic resources like the Matchmaker Exchange, or guidelines or policies that have been published in the field of data sharing and management. Next. Or regarding research and innovation, again, publications and reviews, white papers, or tools like the Orphan Drug Development Guidebook that I mentioned that are now all accessible through our website. If we move now to our current, in the next slide, please, current or new activities. Next slide, please. Okay, we can see here that, for instance, regarding goal 1 diagnosis, we have moved towards the clinical research and development steps with the task force that is aimed at implementing a new diagnostic tools that complement the genomic tools that are generally used today. The drug repurposing for rare disease now is being approached with the same approach that has been used for the production of the guidebook for orphan drug development. And so a tool will be made available specific to drug repurposing. A very important topic and interesting one is addressing those gaps that keep the results of academic research separated from a proper take-up and development by companies. And a dedicated task force named Chrysalis is addressing this in order to identify those properties of research on rare disease that would make it attractive for industry and promote decision-making in industry for investing in such diseases. Also, you can see in the basic research step regarding both goal 1 and goal 2, a task force is addressing those diseases that for extreme rarities are totally disregarded by research in order to identify those common aspects that could be addressed possibly with some strategies based on their commonalities. Next. So regarding clinical rare disease research, we've heard by the previous speakers, by Anne, by Daria, about the clinical research networks, and the specific task force at IRDiRC has worked on this in order to leverage these existing clinical ecosystems and to find ways to build the synergies across them, among them. Also, the approach that Anne Pariser has described regarding leveraging the common shared molecular etiologies in order to allow more patients into clinical trials is being addressed in a specific task force. Next. Very new activity that is going to start very soon is entering a new field of medical devices for rare diseases, so moving outside of the classical drug development field. And again, very interesting and quite in need of being addressed in order to identify gaps and hurdles that could be addressed. Next. And now we move to the far right steps in our research journey, touching on the authorization and access steps. And we've heard from Gareth Bainham the importance of addressing the hurdles of access for indigenous population. So for the most neglected among the neglected people living with rare diseases. Also, we've heard from Durraiin the importance of tackling the barriers to access to therapies that are so huge, not only in different countries, but also within the same country between people with different social and economic status. Finally, the goal 3 on impact is being addressed by a dedicated working group that has already identified key factors and indicators that can be used in order to establish methodologies to assess the impact of diagnosis and therapies on people's lives. So altogether, in the next. Yes, we also have some new activities that haven't started, are about to start now, that are addressing telemedicine. And we've already heard about this opportunity, especially in light of the experience that has been gathered now with the COVID pandemic, and also primary care, addressing the key interface between patients and research and solutions available to them through their primary care. So altogether, in the next, if we paste one on top of the other all of these activities, we can appreciate that while keeping to take care of the core competence of IRDiRC, we are now moving beyond our original borders, and in order to fulfill the vision of providing access to therapies and diagnosis in the most possible fast way. And of course, this is something that can be achieved in collaboration with those organizations and with those institutions that have the competence, the knowledge, and also the power, the decisional power to do that. And for instance, the access barriers to therapies is now being done in collaboration with RDI by Durain, under the leadership of Durain. And that speaks to the need of widening our horizons and strengthening as much as possible our collaborative efforts in order to reach our goals. I stop here. The next slide, please. By thanking all the members of IRDiRC committees, scientific committees, and constituencies, and by thanking all the members of the task forces, the excellent team of the scientific secretariat led by Daria. I thank the European Commission for supporting it. And I thank you for your attention, and will be happy to take your questions. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that good research overview. We have time for a few questions. The first one is from Gail Marks Jarvis, a columnist for the Chicago Tribune and a former NPF fellow, not of this program, but of other programs. She asks, 2 rare diseases, Bell's palsy and Guillain-Barré, are showing up in COVID vaccine adverse event databases. Have these reports attracted research and global research coordination? And if so, where?
So this has not been addressed specifically yet at IRDiRC, but I am aware of several initiatives on that are trying to address rare diseases and COVID together. So funding organizations, most funding organizations that have been surveyed by us have stated that they have diverted their funding interest onto research on COVID, and several of these projects are, of course, taking care of this evidence that is being collected. At my own organization, if I can speak of my experience at Fondazione Telethon, we have launched a dedicated, a COVID-dedicated call by stimulating our researchers to identify those disease mechanisms that have been clarified thanks to research into rare diseases that are relevant for the virus mechanism of action in the cell. And this shows how research on rare diseases can benefit the wider field of medicine, even in the case of this pandemic.
Okay. A question on one of the goals of the consortium. One of the goals has been that all patients coming to medical attention with a suspected rare disease will be diagnosed within 1 year if their disorder is known in the medical literature. All currently undiagnosable individuals will enter a globally coordinated diagnostic and research pipeline. So could you talk with me a little bit about those goals? Right now, it takes much longer for a diagnosis. Is the medical field getting close to that goal that you all have articulated?
Yes, definitely the times are getting faster and faster, and the technical times are faster and faster, as we know. We know that now a molecular diagnosis can be reached in a matter of a few days, and there are more and more tests that are made available that are really technologically advanced. The barrier here is then the implementation into the health system of these tests, and a coordination of efforts so that the diagnostic odyssey is not taking long simply for the fact that the patient is traveling from one expert center to the other. And in this direction, the clinical research networks are greatly helping this so that the competence is traveling to the patient, as Daria said, rather than having the patient physically moving from one to the other. So this is one case where cooperation requires engagement not only of those that are active in research, in developing new technologies, but also the health system that can implement that.
Okay. Question from fellow Sandra Cuff, who is reporting from Guatemala. Could you speak a little bit about what kinds of new non-genomic diagnostic tools are being developed and implemented?
So, well, we are thinking mainly of the other omics that can complement the genomics. So mainly, I would say metabolomics and proteomics. So all the large data technologies that allow to tackle a problem that the genomics approaches have not been able to approach. So the task force that is taking care of these topics has the precise goal of identifying those technologies, those other omics technologies that are mature enough to be proposed to the health system to be taken up and implemented in the routine care.
Okay, and I think this will probably be the last question. And just one other FYI for those watching, the consortium's website has lists its committee members and its officials, and that I've looked at that, and it's like a great place to find lots of potential sources in different places around the world, organized by different topics that they're looking at, such as ethics and clinical trial design and so forth. So I will be putting those links into our resources section, but it's their website is a wealth of information, but also a wealth of potential sources that you might reach out to.
Thank you, Chris. Let me also mention, as I said already during the presentation, that everybody is invited to contribute to EuroBioBank, and we run a regular recruitment campaign into our task forces, scientific committees whose participation is on a rotation basis. We try to put together teams that are diverse in terms of competencies, geographies, and also gender. But anybody who would like to contribute their expertise, they're free to send their input, and they come. We put them in our pool of experts so that we know already who's out there with some competencies that could turn out to be helpful for some specific efforts.
Okay, and the final question, one of the research consortium's goals was to deliver 200 new therapies by the year for rare diseases by the year 2020, and you reached that goal, I believe. Has that goal been updated, or what's the goal going forward?
So the second goal we have now, goal number 2, is to reach 1,000 new therapies by year 2027. So we started the count again in 2017 when we launched the new goals. Have you seen by the simulations that we've run? So the speed of new drugs available has improved a bit, but we've heard from our members that the COVID pandemic has slowed down this process. So hopefully we still have a few years before 2027 to reach this goal. Of course, you can very well understand 1,000 is a round number. It is an aspirational number. But if we think that we have 7,000 diseases and we've heard that only 5% have an available treatment, it is still aspirational, but still too low. So we really have to make all of our efforts into identifying those hurdles that together we can address as EuroBioBank.
Okay, and with that, we need to draw this to a close. Lucia Monaco, I want to thank you very much for taking time from your evening to come to us from Milan, Italy, and give us this great overview. As I said, we will have links for the consortium into the resources on the NPF website. And so I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, have a good evening.